that one man named Jesus changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
And for our students to study the ancient and then have this miraculous worldview change, they can really see it for what it is.
Welcome to Classical Etc. You're in the studio with Memoria Press.
It'll flow out of you, Martin.
Is that what we want?
I'm going to let it flow.
Okay, well, keep it that direction.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Classical Etc. I'm Jessica Aboud, and I am joined by Paul, Tanya, and Martin. Core 4.
You know how we did the live one?
Yeah.
And we were talking about the camera situation. So now I'm trying to figure out the camera. There are two. So, how do y'all know which one to look at?
Well, if the one that David's moving
pointing. Oh, yes.
is, I think if it's moving, I wouldn't look at it. If it's stable, I would look at it. If he's moving that camera, you look at the other one.
Well, then why have the other one?
Or you could do what I do.
Yes.
I do not look at the camera.
Well, sometimes
Nobody's
I talk
ever
to the
seen my
audience.
face.
Sometimes I talk to our
From the side.
audience. Nobody's seen your face.
No, only from the side. Only
But
my
it's your
profile.
good side. It's your good side. Remember how we talked about your hair?
That's why I sit on
Your
this side
hair
of the
grows
table
differently
all
on
the
different sides of your head?
Okay, I'm sorry I brought that up.
All right. Well,
I just looked up and there were two.
but we've spent a lot of quality time together recently because
Yes,
we were all together at the convention in Cincinnati this weekend. And it
That was a
riot.
fun one.
It was good. It was really good. Yeah. So this is our season to be on the road. And on the road we've been together. Has anybody been reading anything good?
This morning, because I knew we had this podcast, I sat down and I read one more chapter of Mary Poppins.
So doesn't this help you then? The podcast helps because
absolutely.
then you feel obligated to read.
Yes, I do feel obligated to read. I have to have something to say. And I listened to a little bit more of what is it? The Confederacy of Dunces?
Oh,
Is that what it
yes.
is?
You
yes.
said you were doing that on audio.
So I listened to a little bit more of that. And I have no idea where that's going. It's just like a trip of its own making. Like a lot of times in books, you kind of know where you're headed.
Right.
No idea on this one.
No signposts for you?
I'm there for the ride, though.
As long as it keeps your interest
Mm-hmm.
and you wonder where it's going. You really wonder where it's going.
Yes, there's enough humor and kind of wackiness that you're like, even though I don't know where it's going, it's worth being here for this moment.
Huh.
That's worth it.
Yeah.
I just finished 84 Charing Cross Road.
Did you love it?
Nope.
Oh, Jessica.
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because I also, a week prior, I finished, or 2 weeks prior, I finished The Correspondent.
Yes, and you didn't like.
Right. And they, to me, were so similar. It's just, they're so similar. It's a rude woman writing letters.
Ooh.
I don't think she's rude.
In the book, in Charing Cross Road, she was
Yes.
unkind. Or was it supposed to be funny? I read
Do
that and I
not
was like,
think
are
she
you
was
supposed to be,
unkind.
is this ironic?
No.
See,
She was kind of like sassy.
Well, but I think
And they were at war. You remember? Anyway, it was a dark time in Britain and she was kind of rude to the Brits. And I just was like,
I just don't get that at all.
maybe skim again.
How interesting.
She was unkind. And I think it was because, well, anyways, I'm not getting into it. But the point is,
They
I
became
read them
very
too
good
close together.
friends.
I think they were fond of each other, but she still wasn't kind. Go
Okay.
back and read it. Because
I will.
I actually have it with me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
I've
I
got
do.
it. I've
The
got
point
it.
is, do you ever read things so close together that you almost can't separate one from another?
Yes.
In terms of your interpretation, they're kind of just it's a swirl.
Yes.
That's where I
yes.
find myself.
Well, I
So.
saw the movie,
Mhm.
and I can't remember the actress who played. She was a famous actress who played that character in the movie, and I don't remember her being unkind in the movie. I think maybe they just softened that a little bit.
I just did not get that at all.
She sends them things, and she's but like I just found her to be kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Terse.
Yes.
Maybe it's how I read her letters. That could be.
Huh.
Or I don't who what nationality was the person who wrote that? Because it was if it
that's a
was a
good point.
Brit, the American reputation is
It-
being rude. And
It
being
was.
terse.
Or just dry.
And she was from New York.
And she was from New York. She lived
Are
in the
you
city.
saying my southern sensibilities are just
Yeah.
so
I think
Yes,
so.
I think so too.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just did not feel like that at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Whereas Tanya's like a Southerner who acts sort of like a New
Like
Yorker.
a northerner.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so it just fits her.
Tanya, terse and direct. I don't understand what you're talking about, Paul.
Maybe that's why I didn't feel
It's
like
so
that.
funny. You know how people say, I'm direct, and you want to be like, no, you're mean as a snake. And you know it.
I think this is more enlightening about Jess than about everybody.
When I think about Jess, I don't think of snakes.
No, but what about when you think about me?
Well,
I'm not going to mention it on
I
public
wouldn't
airwaves.
have offered that one, Tanya.
well, that's my drama. How about everybody else?
I do think of something. I think
Yeah.
rice cakes. She eats these little rice cakes that literally they have no weight because they're all air. She doesn't eat anything, but it looks like
That
she's
is
eating
not
something.
true. I eat regular food. I just don't eat as much of it as you do, probably. I throw away a lot of food. I try to eat my leftovers, but it's hard.
Well,
they
it's
just
hard
give
when
you
you have
so
two people,
much
just two
food in
people living in your
restaurants.
house. Actually, with the kids, it was like everything would
I
always
know.
get eaten.
It's,
Yes.
But when
Oh,
they're
that's
gone,
true, especially
yeah.
boys.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that
what are you
is
reading?
way off topic. So I am still reading The Seahawk by Sabatini,
Oh.
and I am in the second part, and you are right. It does pick up. It definitely picks up. Right now, I'm at the slave market.
oh my.
And so I still am not thoroughly enjoying it. Like I just want to be finished because I'm ready to get on to A Tale of Two Cities, which I have to read next for the Crescent Hill Book Group.
Mhm.
And I think I'm just so ready to do that. And I love Dickens. So I don't know. It's not doing anything for me. But then I'm also trying to read through children's books to see what we want to do more study guides for
Oh,
with the
nice.
teachers working for us this summer. And I found this at Books Bloom at the homeschool convention. And it's the Little Colonel stories. And I remember my friend Mary Berry had a whole set of these books and she loved them. Do you know them?
Oh yes, they're written by a Kentucky author.
They are. They're, in fact, the very first, I was looking at it and I love the way that, I love the formatting of these old books. The very first line is, "It was one of the prettiest places in all Kentucky where the Little Colonel stood that morning." I thought, yeah, this looks so great.
And you
but
know,
look, it's inscribed.
Oh, inscribed,
Hilda
yeah.
J. Miller,
1905.
Christmas 1905 from Uncle George and Aunt Anna.
oh yeah,
I love
Isn't
that.
that nice?
1905.
yeah.
So I'm going to look through it and see what I think.
Well, you know, Shirley Temple made the movie The Little Colonel.
Oh no, but
And they were based
that's
on
not
this.
surprising.
Yeah.
I just, books like this though, I think when the child is so young, so the students then would be older than the child that you're writing. It's kind of like Betsy Tacy.
Yes, yes.
By the time you need a study guide, the students have gone beyond.
Yeah, and it's
These
Annie
characters.
Fellows Johnston, because you didn't mention the author.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Martin?
I'm reading the regular stuff, but I am teaching my introduction to to classical education, and so I'm reading the books that I teach in there, and I always see something different. I think, well, I've read this before. I don't need to read this before. And you read it again. I was like, did I read this before? So Educational Wastelands by Arthur Bester, we discussed in the class last night, which was a book that was written in 1953. And it was a book that Cheryl and I really depended a lot on in terms of the critique when we were involved in this big education reform battle here in the state. That was maybe the key book for us, because it was just talking about the importance of learning, traditional learning, and the disciplines. And people forget there was this movement called the disciplines movement, and what they were basically saying was, we would agree with it, but the problems are different, so our critiques are different. But what Arthur Bester, who was a humanities professor, history professor, said was that subjects are not just collections of content, that they are disciplines, that there are intellectual processes unique to each one of those things, to history, to literature, to all those things, that we need our children to know, and it isn't just a bunch of facts. It is these intellectual processes that we're training our kids to use in these subjects. And so that's basically what the book is about. And he's pushing back against the progressivism of his time in the early 1950s.
And where are you teaching this class?
I'm teaching it on Memoria at memoriacollege.org, Tanya.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm teaching this, and then I'll be teaching a course on classical pedagogy in the fall.
And both those courses, Introduction to Classical Education and Introduction to Classical Pedagogy, are required for the Classical Latin School Association's teacher certification program.
Oh, interesting. That's a cool layer to it.
For certification. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Okay, great. Well, let's tackle a listener question. Emily wrote us at podcast@memoriapress.com. And she said, where would you all recommend starting with learning about philosophy as an adult who did not get philosophy as part of my education growing up in school? I think that's a great question.
Well, I would start with Peter Kraft. You know, when I took a philosophy degree, and Tanya's got it right here, Socrates' Children, and she's got volume 1 here, by Peter Kraft, and that's Kreeft for people who don't know how to spell that. Peter Kraft, and let me go back. I took a philosophy degree, and when I look back at how it was taught to me, I think this was so stupid. I mean, the first book we get in an intro philosophy class is Aristotle's Topics.
Oh my!
I mean, don't read Plato. You know, read the Republic, or Plato's actually a much better writer than a lot of philosophers, and he's clearer, and you can understand him better. But still, I wished I had had Peter Kraft's books back then, because he writes in the most simple, direct form, and yet he writes really well. And so that's what I would do. I would start reading Peter Kraft's Socrates' Children.
And is that sort of an overview?
Yeah, it's kind of a history, really, of philosophy. Okay.
Well,
but he does talk about the issues.
That's volume 1 that starts with the ancient philosophers. And that's one thing I was going to say is start with the ancients, start with the ancient Greeks, and move up from there, because their questions actually make sense. When you get into modern philosophy, sometimes the questions being asked don't make sense because you don't know the history of thought that they're reacting to. The other book I wanted to recommend, or other author really, is Ed Feser. And I bring him up because when I started at Memoria, and myself and another teacher were advocating for a philosophy course in the high school, we didn't seem to be getting much traction with Cheryl until Martin gave her Ed Feser's book, The New Superstition, or The Last Superstition, which is Ed Feser's refutation of the new atheism. And it's very polemical. It's, I don't know if caustic's the right word. It's biting. It's kind of enjoyable writing if you want to see atheism refuted, but also what he's relying on is sort of Thomistic Aristotelianism, and he explains that as he goes. And so I think for somebody getting into philosophy, you're able to get some of those basic concepts that Aristotle presents, but you're getting it sort of in a useful way, where it's something that is used in a theological argument, as opposed to sometimes you start going through a philosophy text and you're like, I have no idea why any of this matters if you're new to philosophy. So I thought that is a nice nice thing.
If I was doing a philosophy program, and particularly if I involved high schoolers or something, I would start with Kraft, and then I would go on to another set of books, which is Frederick Copleston's books, which of course you're familiar with, Paul.
Those look hard to me.
Well, they're harder. They're the next level up, you know. But again, Copleston was a British philosopher, and he was a really clear writer. So yeah, but I agree with you on The Last Superstition. It's kind of fun to read because it's a polemic. It's polemical writing, you know. So it makes it even more enjoyable, I think.
I just would give a disclaimer about this book that these little yellow tabs are actually bad words in the book.
Bad words?
Yes.
Peter Craig, I don't remember them.
And so I just would be careful. I wouldn't hand this to a student. I'd read it first and just then be sure. There's only 4.
But as an adult, you're going to be
As an
able to
adult,
handle
you're
it. It's
fine.
Mm-hmm.
So you can look at the tabs.
I'm going to now.
That's right. Oh, well, that's helpful. Emily, I hope that was helpful to you too. On to topic of the show. We are doing part 2 today in a series that we're calling Best Books by Century. And we're slowing down to ask if we could build a reading list for a single century or era, what would be on it? We started with ancient Greece, and today we're staying in the ancient world, but we're looking at the works of the Romans. So here's a question to start us off. When we're saying we're covering a book list from the works of the ancient Romans, what time period does that put us in? Because that could be pretty broad.
Yes. There's not actually a whole lot
Before
left.
the 4th or 5th century. Yeah.
No, before, I was going to say before like the 2nd century before Christ. So really, like, you start getting stuff in the 100s and 200s before Christ.
Were we talking about Romans or Greeks?
Romans.
Okay, Romans. Have we done the Greeks? They came before.
We did. You
We
were
did.
here.
I wasn't
You weren't
here. I
here.
didn't get to. Okay, well.
Alex Long was on that podcast.
Yes,
and
you
it was
missed
wonderful.
it.
Yeah.
It was wonderful that
Take that how you will. Okay.
Okay, so and I mean, a lot of the 3/4 and 500 BC is what we have left is from the Greeks, right? We don't really have much from the Romans until the 100s or 200s before Christ, and I would say we're going to go at roughly to the fall of the Roman Empire, 476, and what's interesting, I think, if we include that, and we're not like separating by language.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is actually the majority of what we have from the Romans, unsurprisingly, written in Latin, but some written in Greek, a couple. But then if we include like the church fathers, the early Christians that are writing, the vast majority of that's actually in Greek. And there's some in Latin. There's a couple in Latin, which makes sense kind of where the activity is happening. But I don't think in the list of books we're going to present that we're going to make it like we're not just focusing on ones written in Latin, but from this era.
I think that's a helpful distinction to make. Okay. Well, let's get right to it. What are some of the books at the top of your list and why are they there?
I don't have anything on the top of my list.
I think, Tanya, that the Aeneid would jump out to you.
No, well, that's the first one I think of, but I wouldn't put it on the top of my. It would be on the top of my Roman list to read for sure. It's the first one I think of, but I don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, we spend so much time with our students having them read the Iliad, the Odyssey, and I think I said to somebody at the convention this weekend, I was like, "Don't repeat this," but I mean, the Aeneid's a ripoff of Homer, right? No, it's very parallel, right? Because the first half of the Aeneid is very similar to the Odyssey insofar as they're traveling and looking for a home. The second half of the Aeneid is them establishing that home through war, which is very similar to the Iliad.
But it is chronologically. I mean, it makes good sense.
Yes,
chronologically, because they've been removed from their home.
Yes,
by the Greeks, so that's why they're on the search for a new, on this journey for a new home. So it all ties together. I think it would be sad to miss the Aeneid after doing the Iliad and the Odyssey. To see the Trojans come back.
Well, and every great culture has its national myth. The thing that gives it meaning, and so when you read Homer, you're understanding the Greeks better because it's articulating what their ideals and aspirations and all that were. And the Greeks were about strength and intelligence. And And that's slightly different, I think, from the Romans, where it's order and piety.
Mm-hmm.
And you see those, and these are fictional works, obviously, although there's some basis for, I don't know what the basis actually for, Virgil basically arguing that Rome is the new Troy. I mean, was it really founded by a Trojan? Maybe it was, but I don't know what the history of that
It
is.
was founded by those little boys, Romulus and Remus.
Well, there's that, that also.
Yeah, I mean, and he's writing this 700 years after the founding, right?
Yes,
so
right. Mm-hmm.
I don't think he knows that there's no clear line from Troy to Rome.
But it makes a good story.
It makes a good story.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to elevate the Roman emperor, right? And so this is in honor of this newly established empire. And so taking the greatest story of the area and of the Greeks who they have conquered and turning it Roman really is its own sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, as I understand it, the Greeks considered Troy a superior culture to theirs.
But the Greeks did.
Yes. That's my understanding. And so Troy had a good image in a sense, even though it's sacked and burned in Homer's works. And so this whole idea of a Trojan prince, Aeneid was a Trojan prince, fleeing the burning city with his family and is carrying his father, this statue of Bernini at the Borghese Museum. It displays the Roman virtues, right? One of which was virtue, virtus, and they were family oriented. That was a very conscious thing for them, and so to see Rome as the new Troy, basically, founded on the banks of the Tiber River, and bringing these Trojan virtues, which, again, I don't know how many of those were made up by Virgil or whether they were actually true, but it's giving you the story of your founding, and it tells you something about the kind of culture you are in, and it's embodied in this actual story with people in it and all that. So,
okay, so we got the Aeneid. What else?
I had down here a whole bunch from Cicero. You've got the orations against Catiline. You've got the works that our students read, the Republic, the Laws, On Obligations. But the one I wanted to really highlight here is Pro Archia Poeta, which is on defense of the poet Archias. And this is really, it's a legal defense. It's Cicero arguing that this Greek poet, who, according to Cicero, had been given honorary Roman citizenship, but then the records house burned down. And so it's a court case where the prosecutor's trying to say, no, he's not a Roman citizen. And Cicero's trying to say, no, he is one. But then, Cicero kind of lays out those historical arguments of that he was given to it on this day and this celebration, but we don't have the record of it because the records house burned down. But then he says, look, even if he hadn't received honorary Roman citizenship, we should give it to him anyway because he's a poet. And it's a great defense of poetry and the liberal arts. And Cicero just really making the case that for our society, we should value what poets bring. And so it's worth, it's not long, it's worth reading.
It sounds nice.
Did he win the case?
I don't actually know that we have record of that.
Oh.
We have these classical works where we're reading about this great case this person win, and it turns out they lost. I mean, Socrates.
That's right.
Didn't turn out well.
Yeah. But, a few other ones that come to mind also is Lucretius's De Rerum Natura, which is a poem about, it's on the nature of things. It's atomist in nature. So it's proposing sort of an atomic theory as opposed to sort of the Platonic and Aristotelian views that something has a form that creates a unity. But it was highly influential. And then sort of in this list of Romans, I mean, you can't forget Marcus Aurelius and his Meditations, written in Greek. But, that's the Stoic philosophy. So and Cicero is largely like what you're reading in the Republic, in the Laws, is largely Stoic as well. He's very Stoic in his outlook. So you're seeing that strain, and Stoicism fit the Romans really well insofar as that order and piety, where you don't really care about how much it hurts. You're just going to do it because it's the right thing to do.
Which is all through Famous Men of Rome.
And it's really like in the Empire, and you get sort of the decadence where that starts to falter. And that's why Marcus...
And then it falls.
That's why, yes.
They got fat and lazy.
But that's also why Marcus Aurelius is interesting, because he is a later emperor, but he's really trying to harken back to this idea of the Stoics. Then you've got all the historians, right? You've got Tacitus, Livy, Suetonius, Plutarch being a Greek, writing in Greek, but so writing in that era, and that's where we get a lot of...
And Caesar.
And Caesar.
We do De Bello Gallico.
Yes, the Gallic Wars. So there's all that history, which is worth reading. But again, it's not like reading... I think when we talked about Herodotus and Thucydides, it's not like reading a modern history.
Right.
And this goes back to the point Martin always likes to hammer, is that it's easier to read when you know like the content or you have knowledge about it. And it's absolutely true. If you go read one of these, like you probably do want either a heavily footnoted edition or some kind of commentary that's helping you understand what's going on.
Or a Memoria Press study guide.
Or a Memoria Press study guide.
Like a field guide to go along with you.
Yeah, yeah. And there's, I think it was Tacitus who records the eruption of Vesuvius, but I think he's also got a letter that he's talking about the Christians. And so there's some really interesting, like you can just get a letter that's 1 page long, and you get some a really interesting insight into what the Romans were thinking about what was going on, or some kind of vivid description of a historical event that we know happened, but then you get to see somebody who actually recorded it at that time.
Yeah, and I was sitting here thinking, because I've been reading Plutarch last few months, and he's a little hard to read because there's so many characters that are always getting introduced, and so it's you got to really think about it to follow the plot line in some of these stories. I find it's one of those books where there are certain passages and you just mark them all up. They're great, and then you're on into the weeds again a little bit. But of course, Plutarch was very popular even in like early America. Plutarch was one of the classical works that were very widely read. But there's Thucydides. But I think the much easier work, and this is, I'm going back to the Greeks here, is Herodotus. I think Herodotus is so much easier to read than Plutarch, and I wouldn't think that would be the case, but it is. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of Plutarch, I mean, his parallel lives, I believe, are really meant to be moral stories.
Yes.
Right? He's trying to, he's putting two people in contrast so that you can see their decisions in high relief about like what happens when you make this kind of decision. And
it's about Greek history and
Roman history. Right. Now a resource for people, because Martin's pointed out, it is hard to read. I recently stumbled on the podcast Cost of Glory. And it's a guy retelling the stories of Plutarch's lives. Like
that's fun.
He's read it, he's understood it, and now he's telling the stories. And I've listened to several episodes, and it's easy to get a grasp of what's happening and why what's happening is important. And so if anybody's interested in Plutarch,
well, the other thing too,
a class too at Memoria Academy.
Oh, we do?
Pretty sure.
On Plutarch?
The 5 lives?
Summer class?
I believe so.
Oh, so we've taken a few of the lives out of it, and yeah, it's a summer class. That's right.
Well, the other thing too is there were. This seems to have been the case in the 40s and 50s, particularly, maybe earlier than that too. But of these books that were, and we I think did a show on retellings and abridgments and all that. But for particularly these books, there were a whole bunch. It was originally called The Boys' Plutarch, and then it became because boys is mostly boys being educated actually in schools, and then it became the Children's Plutarch, and it was a simplification. And I think those kinds of books are very valuable, even for an adult who's learning this stuff for the first time.
I think that's helpful because I was going to ask you, Tanya, we do Famous Men of Rome. We do some of this content just in a format and in a fashion that children, we want to get the information across to them,
yes,
but in an age-appropriate way.
Right, so that it's accessible for them. And it is setting them up then with a little bit of context. Then when they do actually read, we aren't reading Plutarch and Thucydides and Herodotus now in our curriculum, but we have, as Cheryl was trying to figure out what to do with high school and what to expose them to. Some of it is just because the content is more adult. And we struggled in the classrooms with some of it because if you give them Herodotus and say, well, we're going to skip these chapters, they quickly realize why.
And somebody who is versed in classical literature is going to say, well, the problem there is that, children will read these books and they'll think they've read the original, and when they haven't. Well, okay.
No, our goal was to get them to the originals, right?
This is a step to that.
Yeah.
We should be used as a step to that.
And I mean, going back again, that it's easier to read if you have content knowledge, right? And so if they know the story of the geese protecting the city of Rome, right? When they run into that story in Plutarch, they're going to be like,
it's familiar.
Okay, I know this story, and it helps them understand whatever else Plutarch is trying to weave in there.
Which then, that's the same thing when we study Greek mythology. That's so that they'll have the context when they do hit Homer and Virgil and Shakespeare. That it's the same goal. So we do Famous Men of Rome, and then in grammar school, and then we revisit Roman history the year we read the Aeneid. So we're actually doing a big, the Dorothy Mills Book of the Ancient Romans is more of an overview, and then they actually read the primary source. They read Virgil. But then they've read Virgil, but then they also are translating Virgil in high school. So they're reading Virgil in Latin as well. They're reading Caesar in Latin. They're reading Cicero in English and Latin. So it was all because she did the curriculum from the top down. She knew what she wanted them to get to. And so all of those early years are just preparing them to get there. You didn't mention Augusta.
Well, I got a few more to go here, Tanya.
Okay, because we also do Augustine.
Yes, we do. Before I get there, I just wanted to finish up with the pagans and mention poetry.
Okay.
So we've got Ovid, Horace, Virgil's got other poetry besides the Aeneid. There are Roman poets out there. Now, again, these were pagans and they're also Southern Europeans and they're more earthy. You're going to get more explicit things in there. But if we're to actually give probably credit where credit is due, I mean, they had beautiful poetry. So I just didn't want to forget that.
So is back to Ovid, so that's mythology.
Yes, in poetical form. Yes.
Is the Wonder Book by Hawthorne, is that like a retelling of Ovid?
Well, I think it's a retelling of all the myths. I mean, from a bunch
I just
of
wondered
sources.
If that...
Yeah, which is one of my favorite books.
From.
Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote The Wonder Book and The Tanglewood Tales, which are retellings of the old myths, which are just fabulous.
I've never heard of
I just wondered where his source came from.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what he's working from. Yeah.
The policy. Do you have a list of the Roman Christians?
I do. And this is again, Roman era. Everybody that I've actually listed here, except for Tertullian and Augustine, are all writing in Greek. So, I mean,
but they lived during the Roman
first 3 centuries AD. Yeah. And so, I mean, the first one I actually listed was the Didache because it's a catechism, early Christian catechism, which is fascinating from the 1st or 2nd century. I remember teaching that. I don't know if we still teach that at school.
I don't think we do.
But when we taught it, I remember, because we are ecumenical, you've got people, different Christian traditions. And in there, like, I think it specifies you should baptize by full immersion. And if you can't, then running water over the head is okay, or something like that.
There's some doctrinal things in there.
So then I had all these students that are a little worried about, I was like, it's okay. But Clement, Ignatius of Antioch, Polycarp, Justin, Irenaeus, I mean, they are all worth reading. I mean, no, it's not Justin. It's Irenaeus. Is it? No, I'm getting them all mixed up now. One of them just talks about, like, he's in jail, he's headed towards martyrdom, and just being willing to be ground by the teeth of the lions into effect. Like, he weaves into analogy of, like, the flower that is made into communion in the same way, like, he has to die to bear fruit. And, and Christ saying, right, unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it won't become anything. And so there's just some very beautiful writings there. There's also, like, Tertullian and Origen, who are highly influential, both heretics, but according to
church history,
but highly influential. Eusebius is, like, the early church historian. Again, a historian that's a little hard to read, especially if you don't have the context, but we were doing that with our 8th and 9th graders. I don't know if we still are.
It's in our study, the history of the early church. We read Chadwick's book, and Eusebius is our primary source.
Yeah, we send them there to get snippets, right?
Yes. So it should be at an age appropriate level.
Yes. And then my last one was the cream of the crop was Augustine.
Mm-hmm.
And he, I think he dies in 430. I wrote life dates here of 354 to 430, and Rome falls in 476, right? And Daniel, you were mentioning
his city falls as he's dying,
right?
Yeah,
right, and being besieged by the barbarians, right? Yeah. And so.
So he was in North Africa, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the thing about all these guys writing in Greek. The Roman Empire just was everywhere. So when we talk about what to read historically, it could be from anywhere.
Geographically,
and still be yes.
Anywhere in that Mediterranean basin, yeah. And so... But Augustine, right, I would read his Confessions. It's probably the most readable. I've given a lot of talks on his teaching on catechizing the uninstructed.
7 principles.
Right. But then our students read Selections of City of God, right?
They do. We use an abridged City of God, and they don't have time to do it all because it's the same year they're reading Cicero. But with the study guide, I think it's more accessible than it would be just to sit down and try to read City of God. I mean, some of these things, we're just introducing them to students. We're not expecting them really to get everything out of them that an educated adult could get from them, but it is a good introduction.
Yeah. And I think the fascinating thing about this era, right, is you have a thriving political machine that's pagan, and then you have Christianity that comes in and transforms everything. I mean, even their basilicas, which were like their legal buildings, become the churches, right? Like, and that becomes also the way Christians build churches. And when you go over and if you've done this reading, if you go over and visit, I mean, you just see how all of this stuff has persisted. It's so miraculous. It really is that just, that one man named Jesus changed everything. And for our students to study the ancients, the Greeks, the Romans, and then
have this miraculous worldview change I think they can really see it for what it is because they have studied the pagan world before it and they've seen how strong it was. And, a lot of these people they were so smart and they had figured things out without the revelation of Christ. And so by studying those things first, when we get to Christ, I think they should have a much bigger understanding of how huge that was, that one man could change everything.
One man who was also God in human flesh.
That's right.
You might want to point out.
That could be why he was able to do that.
That could be why. But I think that's actually...
But he still had to die.
Yeah. That's a beautiful note to end on. For me, at least, it's really motivating to think about where I might begin with some of these. I probably would need one of the overview books, but my point is this is such a significant, poignant part in the history of civilization, and you get to hear it and see it and feel it from the people who are living in it.
Yeah, and the longer you live, the more you realize, I can say that with authority, the longer you live, the more you realize the influence of this, that we would be completely different, a completely different civilization if it weren't for this. This is where, this is the source of so many of our thoughts, our practices, and to just, I guess you can get through life without knowing that, but it's so much more interesting if you are able to see how far back it goes. And like Paul says, to be able to go then to Rome and these other cities in the Middle East and in Europe and see your history. It's right there and where it all came from. And if you didn't know this stuff before you went there, it's just, it's not going to be as magical to you.
Yeah, exactly.
There is the text I don't know if we still use, but we used that I remember teaching at Highlands of it's called Early Christian Writings from Penguin, but it's got Clement and Polycarp and maybe some Justin Irenaeus. I don't know. It's got the Didache in there. It's got several, of the important ones. And so even if you're just stuck about like, where do I even start? Like a compendium like that's helpful.
I think that may have dropped out.
Yeah.
With Chadwick and Eusebius. That's where it used to be.
Yeah.
But a resource nonetheless.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
For especially, hopefully, what I was trying to do was give a list that hopefully adults can start chipping away at.
Yeah.
Right.
And that also, but it gives an idea of where we want our students to be able to be at when they're adults.
Exactly. Well, thanks, everybody. A good discussion. And thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time.
Thanks for joining us today on Classical Etc. by Memoria Press. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, or share this episode or comment. We love to hear your questions and your comments. If you want to learn more about Memoria Press, please go to memoriapress.com. This has been Classical Etc. We're so glad you joined us, and we'll see you next time.